The NBA draft lottery has been completed, so I'm going to do another NBA mock draft. Guys, Michael Bolton's ready.
Let's get to it.
Let's get to it, indeed. So I'm going to do another NBA mock draft. Guys, Michael Bolton's ready.
Let's get to it.
Let's get to it.
You are Locked On Fantasy Basketball, your daily fantasy basketball podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On Fantasy Basketball podcast, brought to you by Basketball Monster. My name is Josh Lloyd and I am the lead fantasy analyst at basketballmonster.com and at Yahoo Sports Australia. And you can find me on Twitter, as always, at redrock_bball and on Instagram at Locked On Fantasy Basketball. Today's show, I thought I'd do another NBA draft, mock draft, because the lottery happened the other day, a couple of days ago. So, redoing my ideas about this draft. So I'm going to go through the first round. Remember, now, this mock draft is not what I think will happen. It's not me predicting what teams will do. It's what I would do if I was in the position of those GMs, and this is how I would pick those players for an NBA draft coming up. So that's what we're going to do. We're also doing this one live here over on Periscope. So if you are watching live, go and chuck a comment down below. And if you've got questions as we go along, let me know. I've also just started recording this immediately after Luka Doncic, which, speaking of NBA drafts, Luka Doncic went absolutely bananas against the Clippers to take that game 4 with a overtime game-winning, buzzer-beating three-pointer in a game without Kristaps Porzingis. And just remember back to that draft, it was absolutely asinine that he didn't go at pick number 1. It was ridiculous he didn't go at pick number 2. It was stupid that he was picked at number 3 and then traded. He is the best prospect we have seen for years and years and years, and he will be a continual MVP candidate. There is nobody like that in this draft. Let's not get things confused. Nobody's going to be able to do that in this one, but that remains one of the dumbest draft decisions of all time, and it was dumb when it happened, and it remains even dumber. It's amazing that it can be so stupid when it happens, and it somehow continues to get dumber, and that's exactly where we are with that decision by the Suns, by the Kings, and by the Atlanta Hawks. So let's go into talking about this mock draft now. And let's have a look at these picks. Remember, when the lottery happened, we got the Minnesota Timberwolves at pick number 1. They jumped all the way up to pick number 1. Now, they just traded for D'Angelo Russell, so that makes things a little bit interesting. D'Angelo Russell, Karl Anthony Towns. No, they can't trade pick number 1 for Devin Booker. That's just something that's not going to happen. The Suns wouldn't allow that. And I know they're friends. I just don't think that's something that's going to happen. Right, so we're assuming here that they're keeping this pick number 1, which they will. And I think in this situation where the Timberwolves are, they just have to take the best player available. I don't really see there's any other way around that. Now, to some of you, the best player available will be debatable. I, at this stage, don't think that it really is. So to me, the best player available in this draft is LaMelo Ball. Now, he is a 6'7" point guard. D'Angelo Russell's a 6'5" point guard. Can they play together? Why not? I'm pretty sure they can. We've seen 2 6'2" point guards play together pretty successfully in Toronto with Fred VanVleet and Kyle Lowry. It happens lots of times. Now, LaMelo obviously has to work a lot on his shooting, but he is a fantastic passer. He is a guy that is got some poor defensive issues, but so does D'Angelo Russell. So does Karl Anthony Towns. They can all work on being shithouse at defense together. I just think getting a guy like Ball, who to me is the clear option. Now, plenty of people will say, no, you take Anthony Edwards there. I just think the ability to be a sustained good NBA player or very good NBA player is much higher in LaMelo Ball's case. Maybe D'Angelo Russell doesn't work out. Remember, this is his 4th team that he's on. Maybe he just isn't that guy and they want to go with LaMelo. That's an option in the future. They can work together. Melo can perhaps guard 2s and 3s. He can't guard anyone at the moment, but maybe he can guard those with his size and length. If he can develop any semblance of a shot, he can play a little bit off the ball. But even him, then he can run things and then they can stagger these guys also. Having a second ball handler, they doesn't have to start, but he can play a Dennis Schroeder role through his first season, playing 20 plus, 25, 26 minutes coming off the bench behind Russell, staggering, playing by themselves, playing together. I think this is the way that we really need to go. If I was Minnesota, this is the direction I would be going. I'm not saying, well, I've got D'Angelo Russell, so I'm set at point guard. I don't think we really should be thinking that way. And I don't think they necessarily will be thinking that way. So at pick number 1, to me, it is LaMelo Ball. At pick number 2, it's the Golden State Warriors. So they had the worst record in the NBA, equal highest odds for the number 1 pick. They slide down to number 2. And I know people are looking at this and going, well, they've got a clear hole. It's at center. Marquise Chris is their center. That means James Wiseman's going there. Not for me. I'm just not that interested in James Wiseman as a player. I think he's solid enough. I think that he can be an okay defensive center in terms of rim protecting. Switching, no way. Passing, can't do it. Shooting, not there yet. He's not going to get many offensive touches in Golden State. So what are you drafting him for? To be a 21-minute a night, 23-minute a night center at number 2? I don't think that's the way you want to go. I'm taking Anthony Edwards at pick number 2 for the Warriors. They have Klay Thompson. They have Steph Curry. Nobody is denying that. They're a team that's probably going to be back in the playoffs next year. Who's their third guard? Jordan Poole? Michael Mulder? Like, there's not other guys there that you go, well, who's that sixth-man player that comes in and provides all this value for the Warriors? I think you just look at Edwards, and I'm not convinced he's the second best player in this class. He could be. I'm not convinced. He's in the mix for it for sure. But I think that's the direction you want to go because perimeter players are significantly more valuable than centers. Kai Bowman's not the answer there. You know, is Andrew Wiggins, who's more of a 3. Like, is he the other? I think you need this extra bench guard. Do you want to rely on Damian Lee to be that option for you? I don't think so. So to me, Anthony Edwards is the one that I want to go for at pick number 2. If I was the Golden State Warriors. Now, he has a lot to work on with his shooting. Defensively, I think he's pretty good. Passing, not quite there. The shooting needs work. I think 29% shooter in 3, so from 3 in college. A little bit to work on there. Not to say LaMelo was a good shooter at all. But Edwards is who I would take there at pick number 2 for those Golden State Warriors. Next up is pick number 3. It's the Charlotte Hornets, who moved all the way up to number 3. And I am taking for them Killian Hayes. Yes, their center situation isn't great at the moment, but I would much rather have PJ Washington be my center than go with James Wiseman. So, and they've got Devontae Graham. That's true. They've got Terry Rozier. That's true. But is that what you're banking on? Is this your future? Is this your... they're going to take us to the promised land? No. Devontae Graham was pretty good this season. Like, really good. Big improvement. Tailed off quite a bit as the season went on. Terry Rozier is not that good. Killian Hayes is a guy that I think can develop into a pretty good all-star or sub-all-star level point guard. I'm not convinced there's really going to be many all-star seasons from anyone in this draft class, to be honest. Maybe 2 or 3 all-star years from anyone in this class would be my guess. But I think adding Hayes to Graham and Rozier, again, ideally you want to get off Rozier, would be the ideal scenario here for Charlotte. Now, if they went with Wiseman here at 3, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. If they decided to get ONYEKA OKONGWU there, even though that's pretty similar to PJ Washington, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But I just want to take a guy, and I've consistently had Hayes, Ball, and Edwards as the top 3 guys in this class. And these teams up the top, maybe Golden State less so, but their depth is pretty shallow. You just take the best guy who's there. And that's, I think, what Charlotte is doing here with this pick of Killian Hayes, a guy that has improved significantly defensively. I think his shooting is going to be really strong. I think his passing is really good. His right-handed or his left-handedness is a massive concern, and his ability to not do anything with the right hand is absolutely a worry. But I'm taking him here. I'm not worried about Devontae Graham. I'm not worried about Terry Rozier being there. Let's just get Hayes in and see what he can do. Question here from Paper Vase, as we would say. 1, is this going to be posted on YouTube? Yes, it will go up on YouTube later on. Don't worry about that. All right, so let's go on to the next selection here in this draft. Actually, before we go on to the next selection, if you guys are feeling stressed at home, everyone is. There's so many things going on in the world. It doesn't matter whether you're a professional athlete, stay-at-home parent, or if you spend 8 hours a day in an uncomfortable office chair. Everyone needs support to make it through the day. Luckily, our friends at CBDMD have an amazing duo that can help you relax, regroup, and recharge when life gets chaotic. CBD Freeze with Menthol is an award-winning product that offers instant cooling relief for muscles and joints in a convenient and easy-to-use roller or shareable squeeze tube. CBD Recover. Combine CBD with inflammation-fighting compounds like arnica and vitamin B6 to give you the support you need where it matters most. And to make it even easier to try this amazing duo of topicals and everything else CBD MD has to offer, they're offering all our listeners 25% off your next order when you use the promo code NBA at checkout. Once again, that's cbdmd.com. Promo code NBA for 25% off your purchase of superior CBD oil products from CBD MD. Now, let's go on to the next selection. Probably go through these a little bit faster now. At pick number 4, it's the Chicago Bulls, also moving up. I would have loved for the Bulls to have got Killian Hayes here or LaMelo Ball, but that's just not what's happening. So they are going with DENI AVDIJA. Out of Israel at pick number 4, Otto Porter is currently their starting 3. Plenty of injury concerns. I'm not sure they'll look to retain him when free agency comes around. They've got Zach LaVine, Cody White, Wendell Carter Jr., Lauri Markkanen. Who knows what's going to happen with trades there. But I think just getting AVDIJA in this spot, a guy that can play the 3, who probably ideally is going to play a lot of 4 in the NBA as well. Now, I don't think he should go any higher than this, obviously, because I didn't pick him any higher than this. His shooting can be a concern. His free throw shooting is a worry, but he had some good moments after the shutdown of the European season, where he was able to hit some pretty decent 3 balls in Israel. And I think he's a little bit away from being a massive impact player, but if we're just looking at players who fit a position of need in the NBA, he's a really strong passer, really strong cutter. Maybe there's some development there in his shooting. He's still pretty young. I think AVDIJA is probably the pick for me there at number 4 for the Chicago Bulls. Let's go on to the next selection here. At pick number 5, the Cavs. Devin Vassell of Florida State. 2 guards the last 2 years. They've got Larry Nance, Kevin Love, Andre Drummond in the front court. Not that Nance and Love or even Drummond are necessarily going to be there long term. Not that Sexton is the answer or Garland is the answer at either of those guard positions. Sexton probably has at least a role as a strong 6-man, maybe a starting shooting guard. But with how this mock has played out, the other options around, I could have gone with Isaac Okoro here for Cleveland. They've got Chetty Osman currently starting at the 3. I think Vassell coming in as a really strong defensive player, a really strong shooter, is exactly what Cleveland would want at this spot. And that sort of prototype, now how much he can develop his offensive game remains to be seen. But a good defender with really strong shooting pedigree is a player that everybody wants. And in a draft that doesn't have high-end talent, strong rotation guys, deep rotation guys, flat deep rotation guys, getting a player at a position of need across the league, a 3-point shooting defensive wing, I think is really important for Cleveland, especially with guys like Sexton and Drummond and Garland being shithouse defenders. Getting someone in there who can bang in the 3 and provide that threat and do a little bit of defensive stuff for them, I think is really going to be important for Cleveland. All right, at pick number 6, it is not the Cleveland Cavaliers. That's what happens when you go live. You have to make your changes on the fly. It is the Atlanta Hawks who come in at pick number 6, and they are taking Tyrese Halliburton out of Iowa State. Now, we know Cam Reddish, DeAndre Hunter, Trae Young, Vanderpants, Kevin Huerter. They're all those 4 key guys. John Collins up front, Clint Capella up front. So they've got a whole bunch of young guys and sort of foundational type pieces, but they've always been lacking a secondary ball handler. Halliburton, as a primary ball handler, I think gets in trouble because I'm not convinced with the shooting as a primary ball handler. I'm not convinced with his ability to get to the rim and his athleticism. But as a secondary guy, playing off Trae Young, I can really see that working for him. Some of his spot-up shooting at Iowa State was really good. I think he was a 40% three-point shooter. But as that primary guy creating his own shot, that might be a little bit harder. But with Trae Young there, you got that option. And it gives you a backup point guard. It gives you a secondary ball handler. It gives you a guy with size who can play next to Trae Young as well and change those lineups and rotations around. So to me, Halliburton makes quite a bit of sense there for Atlanta, getting another ball handler in there and not putting him in that role where he probably would struggle as a primary number 1 star point guard. I don't think that's the exact role that Halliburton needs to be in. Let's go on to the next one. It's the Detroit Pistons taking the Memorial Chicago Bulls number 7 overall selection. And at number 7, the Pistons, they are going to take old Blunty, James Wiseman. Where are you now? Now, a lot of people would have had Wiseman going earlier than this. I understand that. He probably will go earlier than this in the real draft. But as I said, this is not me making the choice For what I think will happen, it's what I would do in this scenario. They do have the crucifix Christian Wood up there at center. I think that Wood had some really, really good games, and he was pretty strong. Blake Griffin's there. No one's banking on him long term. No reason that Wiseman can't come in and work behind Wood, work next to Wood in that front court, and give them some potential star upside in someone like Wiseman. I'm not convinced that he becomes a star. I'm not convinced that he becomes even like a sub all-star level player. But I think he can be a strong starter with a really decent rim protecting pedigree. And if the Christian Wood scenario doesn't work out, maybe he goes somewhere else as well, then Wiseman can come in and maybe be a starter from day one. So I think it works out pretty well for Detroit in this scenario to get Jimmy Wiseman at number 7. Let's go on now to number 8, and it is the New York Knicks. The Knicks fans, they think they're so cursed because they moved down from 6 to number 8. It doesn't really matter that much in this draft. And at number 8, they are picking Isaac Okoro. They're getting someone who's not a high usage, terrible defender such as Julius Randle, or someone who's just terrible in all facets like Kevin Knox, is actually a win for the Knicks. Now, they don't need him to be a high usage guy. RJ Barrett's got that down. Julius Randle's got that down. Being another defensive piece to pair with Big Mitchie Robinson, I think is important for this Knicks team to get someone in there. I think he's got some ability to work as a secondary creator or tertiary creator as well. Ideally, the Knicks would want Killian Hayes to fall in this spot, and that's exactly who they should be picking if he is available there, and he very well could be in the real draft. But I think Okoro coming here, I'm not 100% convinced on what he's going to do offensively. The shooting, I think, is a real worry. Defensively, I think he's pretty good, but there are still concerns there with him in terms of how impactful he can be. But I think, at this spot, it makes a lot of sense to take Isaac Okoro for the Knicks at pick number 8. Guys, Built Bar is back. The best tasting protein bar ever. Has got 6 new flavors. Caramel brownie, cookies and cream, cherry barcia, lemon almond cheesecake, carrot cake, apple almond crisp as well to go along with those 12 original favorites, including your favorites like banana bread, toffee almond, coconut, all those great flavors. These bars are all covered in 100% chocolate. They taste like a candy bar, but they are actually really great for a health conscious person. Lose or maintain weight while indulging in a delicious treat. Low calorie, low sugar, high protein. Just look at their cherry barcia bar. 17 grams of protein, 130 calories, and only 4 grams of sugar. And while stocks last, if you make a purchase at BuiltBar.com, you get a free cooler with that purchase. So go to BuiltBar.com, use the promo code LOCKEDON, and you'll get $10 off your next order. Use that promo code LOCKEDON for $10 off at BuiltBar.com. All right, next pick up here in this mock draft, we are looking at the 9th pick, and that is the Washington Wizards, and they are taking ONYEKA Okongwu. Now, I think Okongwu, he's fallen a little bit here from where he was in my past mocks. I had him up pretty hot, much higher than this. I think he could easily be a better big man than James Wiseman, and he could easily go inside the top 5 and it not be a problem. Now, he's a little bit short, but he can protect the rim. Passing is a problem for him. He hasn't really developed into much of a shooter, but he's got some offensive game. He's a pretty strong finisher. But defensively, I really like what OKONGWU can do. But he's a little bit undersized. But again, with the Wizards lacking so much defensively, I'm not convinced Thomas Bryant is a long-term defensive center, because he's not. So OKONGWU can come in, maybe play a little bit alongside Bryant. That's not his preferred role, though. I'd like to see him playing alongside Rui Hachimura and see how that works. But OKONGWU at pick number 9 for Washington is the direction that I've gone here. At pick number 10, it is ALEKSEJ POKUŠEVSKI going to the Phoenix Suns. POKUŠEVSKI has such high upside, but a really shaky floor. He's probably not going to be able to contribute too much in year 1. He's a 7-foot power forward who blocks shots, shoots threes, plays like a point guard, handles like a point guard, passes like a point guard. The Suns had some success playing Cam Johnson at power forward this season. They had Dario Saric look good as a backup center. POKUŠEVSKI, and who knows how they retain him. There's Kelly Oubre, there's McCall Bridges there as well. POKUŠEVSKI, if he develops well, can be a perfect complement to DeAndre Ayton. A rim protector, a shooter, a guy that can be a secondary ball handler alongside Devin Booker or Ricky Rubio or whoever else is at point guard there. POKUŠEVSKI has really high upside, and I think the Suns need to be taking that flyer on a player like him at this point. So pick number 10, that is the direction that I went. Pick number 11 is the San Antonio Spurs, and I'm sticking with Obi Toppin there for them. Again, a lot of people think Toppin is a lot better than this. I don't. He's horrible defensively. I don't think he ever becomes good defensively. He is old. He's like 22, 23 years of age. He played really well, beating up on mid-majors playing for Dayton. His three-point shooting, the numbers look pretty good. He finished around the rim fantastically, but I'm not convinced. Now, with a team that's got LaMarcus Aldridge, maybe losing Jakob Poeltl in free agency, getting some extra power forward type players in there, although they had success playing DeMar DeRozan there, is important. And maybe if anyone's going to teach him defense, it's either going to be Toronto, it's going to be San Antonio. I don't think they're ever going to be able to do that. He's like a guy that they use quite a bit this year in Trey Lyles. I think he probably can be better than Trey Lyles, but not significantly. And I just worry about where Toppin fits in the NBA. I don't see him as a star upside guy. I think he can score well, but I think when you come up against NBA level athletes, he's just not going to have that advantage that he did have, and he needs to really work on that shot, which looks pretty good, but I'm not totally convinced. But what the hell else does he do? Can he pass? No. Can he defend? Absolutely not. Can he create for himself? Not really. So there are some significant concerns to me with Obi Toppin, and that's why he's going down lower than where most people would have had him, I assume. Let's look at pick number 12 now. It's the Sacramento Kings. They're taking Cole Anthony there. They experimented using De'Aaron Fox and Corey Joseph together. Joseph was solid-ish, but I think you're getting into another guard in, and they're probably going to get rid of Buddy Hield. I don't think there's too much doubt about that. Anthony, a guy that had some real struggles for North Carolina this year, but a lot of that was team-based and the struggles that he had on that squad in terms of their lack of spacing. So, I think there is some value there to try and develop him as a backup point guard, a guy that maybe can play alongside De'Aaron Fox. But in a weak draft, when we pick at number 12, we're not looking at all-star type players. You're looking at who can be a rotation guy, who can help my team and be a solid NBA player for 6 years, 7 years. Minimum. Yeah, you hope to get 10, but that doesn't always happen. So getting Cole Anthony at number 12 is the pick for me for Sacramento. At number 13, the New Orleans Pelicans, Patrick Williams. Really, really young player. Didn't play a lot for Florida State this year, but he is a guy, small forward, power forward type upside. He averaged 15 and 6 per 36 this year. Big steal, big block numbers. I think if he can develop the shooting and develop that defense, playing next to Zion Williamson in the Nicolo Melli role long term is ideal. Their lack of big men. Now, there's Jackson Hayes there, but this is a different player. Those 3-4 type players is where they lack. He could fit alongside Brandon Ingram as well, I think, with some of his defensive abilities. And I just think taking that upside on a guy who is one of the youngest in this class, if not the youngest, Pokuševski is actually the youngest. He doesn't turn 19 for another couple of months. But Patrick Williams, he's still a young guy with some defensive upside, with some shooting upside, with some offensive upside. That is the move I'm going for the Pelicans at pick number 13. At pick 14, it's the Boston Celtics, and they are taking RJ Hampton, just adding another guard in there. Another guy that had some struggles in the NBL for New Zealand this season, but a guy that's probably a combo guard type of a player that can hopefully shoot a little bit, handle the ball a little bit, play some solid enough defense. Just Celtics, they want wings, they want guards, and they're getting another wing, and they're getting another guard here in this spot. Pick number 15, the Orlando Magic, Tyrese Maxey, a offensive type guard, and they need those. DJ Augustin's not getting any younger. Evan Fournier, we don't know how long he's going to be around with this team. Maxey, plays behind Markelle Fultz, could play alongside Markelle Fultz. I think there's upside with him as well, given the Kentucky constraints that often happen with players. I worry somewhat about how his shooting is going to look, and that's a standard Orlando trait, but his ability to drive and finish is really strong. Defensively, he's okay as well, so I like Maxey going there at 15 to Orlando. At 16, the Portland Trailblazers take Aaron Nesmith from Vanderbilt, a guy that shot 50% from three during the year, a guy that's got, wing type size, and we know how much they lacked wings. You can't rely on Trevor Ariza and Carmelo Anthony forever. Gary Trent's probably more of a 2, and just having some more shooting with Dame and CJ out there. Trent's shown that ability, and getting Nesmith in there, who probably isn't going to play much in year one, but can come out there and be a decent enough wing type player with that lethal shooting. Next up, pick number 17, the Minnesota Timberwolves are back on the clock, and they're taking Jalen Smith out of Maryland. Now, Smith is a guy that I hadn't had in the mock draft before, so he's jumped up. He's a 20-year-old forward center type player, 6'10". He averaged 18 and 12 with almost 3 blocks per game per 36 last year. Really good advance numbers as well. 63% true shooting, offensive and defensive box score plus minus, really high numbers. A decently high usage player as well. Could he play next to Karl Anthony Towns? Well, he shot 37% on threes, on 3 attempts a game. Towns is a 40% shooter on high volume. I think maybe they could play together. That means you're not relying on Juancho Hernan-Gomez or James Johnson there. Play backup center, even Jalen Smith. So I do think that he is a guy that I probably should have had in more of my earlier mocks, but he's here now, and he's putting up some. I think he can put up some interesting numbers in the future for this Minnesota team. All right. On to the next one, pick number 18. It is the Dallas Mavericks. And at number 18, they're taking Kira Lewis Jr. out of Alabama. Just a guy that's eventually going to replace a JJ Barea. They've got Jalen Brunson there, of course. Luka Doncic is the starting point guard. We're not looking for starters. We're just looking for guys that maybe can come in and contribute. Push guys like Brunson, push guys maybe like Tim Hardaway at some point, but probably not. Lewis, I'm not massively into him as a great option. He averaged only 5 assists and 18 points per 36 as a 6'3" point guard last year. He's very undersized, but he's super quick. And we know that Rick Carlisle will go with small guards consistently, and that's exactly what Lewis is. He shot 37% from 3 as well. Good free throw shooter. Probably going to be a strong NBA three-point shooter as well. Next up, pick number 19, the Brooklyn Nets. They're taking Josh Green out of Arizona. Green, a guy that can come in, I think, and be an immediate impact player defensively. They're playing in that bench role, that Garrett Temple type role in the future. He's got a lot to work on offensively for sure with his shooting, which was pretty rough this year, but he averaged 1.8 steals per 36 minutes. He did still shoot 36% from 3 on 3 attempts per game. He shot 78% from the line, but there is still concerns. 53% true shooting overall, couldn't hit his 2-pointers. Offensively, he was an issue at times during the year. But I think hitting him in here behind Kyrie and Durant and LeVert and Joe Harris hopefully retains for the Nets. There's some room for develop there for Josh Green. At pick number 20, Miami is taking Tyrell Terry, a shooter out of Stanford, a guy that they don't need to necessarily use him straight away. They've got Tyler Hero, but who knows what happens with Goran Dragic. Terry not necessarily going to be a starting point guard type player, but a bench contributor who's a combo guard type player. Again, just a guy that is a good shooter, and Miami loves to have some good shooters on the team, much like Duncan Robinson. Let's have a look. Pick number 21, the Philadelphia 76ers. They are taking Malachi Flynn out of San Diego State, a guy that some people will project to go in the second round. And that's fine, but I just think with this Sixers team, this is a guy that's a high volume, very good three-point shooter, very good free throw shooter, secondary ball handler, can play some defense. I think it's a perfect fit next to Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid. Now, whether those guys are both on this team next season or if Brett Brown's still coaching remains to be seen. But Flynn, to me, is a perfect option for Philadelphia here at this selection. Number 22, it is the Denver Nuggets, and they are taking Saddiq Bey out of Villanova. Bey is a wing-type player. Strong shooter, 6'8", average 17 and 5 per 36. Defensive numbers are pretty weak, but he hit 45% of his threes last season. His defensive box score plus minus is horrible. That's a real concern for him. But just having another guy at a small forward type position who can come in and be a shooter, be a bomber, I think is probably what Denver would be looking for at this selection. Pick number 23, the Utah Jazz. They're taking Grant Riller, a guy that is a prolific scorer, 4-year player in college. Emmanuel Mudiay minutes, they can all disappear. Sort of a Jordan Clarkson, not replacement, but a guy that can develop into that role in the future. Can he be an NBA starter, Riller? I'm not sure. Can he be a 25-minute-a-night bench guy? Yeah, probably he can. So Grant Riller to the Jazz to me there at 23. 24, it's the Milwaukee Bucks. And I'm taking Xavier Tillman, really smart, big man who can, Brook Lopez, Robin Lopez, Ersan Ilyasova. They're not there forever. I don't think DJ Wilson has any sort of future in terms of being a lockdown starter guy. Maybe Tillman doesn't get to that area either, but he's a pretty good passer. He's one of the best players in college basketball all of last season, and just a smart player who can defend, who can pass, and I think that would fit with exactly what Milwaukee would want. Now, whether he plays at all, probably doesn't early on. But yeah, that's really banking in and just another good player for the future. For the Thunder at pick 25, they're taking Desmond Bane, another older player who's a prolific scorer and a very, very good shooter. They're probably going to move on, I would imagine, at some point from Terrence Ferguson. Hamidou Diallo is not the answer. Maybe Desmond Bane's not the answer either, but at least give it a try. We don't know what Schroeder's going to do. Chris Paul's not going to be around forever. So just another guard into the mix, and a guy that can shoot is always a positive for teams in the draft. At pick number 26, the Boston Celtics. They're taking Leandro Bolmaro, a really, really strong passing guard, big body guard as well, who has some concerns with his shooting, but he's 6'7". He averaged 17 and 5 assists per 36 minutes with 2.4 steals. Just another guard, another ball handler. Maybe he doesn't come over immediately as well. The Celtics have 3 first-round picks in this draft, so if they're going to keep him over there, that's a positive for them. 29% three-point shooting is obviously not good, but his passing, his vision, his ability to run an offense is really strong. He works himself into a Brad Wanamaker role at some stage, absolutely, for Leandro Bolmaro. At pick 27, it is the New York Knicks, and I'm taking Theo Maledon here out of France for the New York Knicks, a guy that I'm not convinced of. 6'4" guard, averaged 15 and 6 per 36 this year. Defensively, he has some worries. The shooting numbers aren't great. Not a fantastic free throw rate, but a good 3-point attempt rate, which is a strong number. But just a guy that I think struggled along a little bit this year. But I still think he can be a player that can be a decent enough ball handling type for a Knicks team that needs ball handling types. Next up, pick number 28 is the Los Angeles Lakers, and I'm taking Precious Achiuwa here. I'm not convinced that Precious is an NBA starter. Just a guy that can come in and fill in some center minutes. JaVale and Dwight Howard aren't around forever. I'm not convinced with Precious as well. People will see him in the lottery. I just don't really think that. He definitely can't play at the 4. And he probably wouldn't play much for the Lakers early on, but I'm taking him here anyway. Just I didn't want him to fall out of the first round. I think this is probably an okay spot for Achiuwa. At pick number 29, it is the Toronto Raptors, and they're taking Nico Mannion out of Arizona, a ball handler. 6'3" guard, averaged 16 and 6 per 36, 1.3 steals. A guy that only shot 33% from 3, but I think he can be a better 3-point shooter than that. Again, the Raptors' development system is fantastic. Lowry's not going to be around forever. Van Vliet's a free agent. Not saying Mannion's ever going to be a starter, but he could be at some point. He's still only 19, so pretty young. And I just work their development system on him and get him just working at a higher level to maybe develop into a backup point guard. And the last pick in the draft, it's Boston again, and they're taking Jameis Ramsey out of Texas Tech, a guy who is quite a good offensive player and quite a horrible defensive player. Averaged 17 points per game. He shot 43% from 3, just getting another 3-point shooter in there. Doesn't do a huge amount else apart from that, but getting that 3-point shooting in there, I think he is really important for the Celtics and or any team in the NBA. And that's what Ramsey is going to provide, offensive type guard. And guys, I reckon that'll do it for me with this mock draft today. What did you guys think of the mock draft? Which picks did you like? Which picks didn't you like? Leave them in the comment down below on YouTube. You can throw it at me on the Periscope here as well. What else have we got happening over there? Thanks to everyone who did join in the Periscope. You can leave those comments on YouTube. Tweet at me at redrock_bball. Guys, subscribe, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, and on YouTube. Guys, we are done here. Thank you so much for listening, everyone. See ya.